This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Hello, welcome to Undistracted. I'm your host, Laura Bennett, and this is the podcast where we learn from our guests how to be better at building our lives with intention around our passions, our purpose, and dealing with some of the stuff that gets in the way of that. Nashville-based artist Riley Clemmons has been writing and performing since she was 13 after being discovered at a school pageant. At 23, she's already spent a decade in the industry, accumulating over 500 million global streams and 85 million YouTube views since she started out. In 2021, Riley was nominated as Female Artist of the Year at the 9th Annual K-Love Fan Awards, making her the youngest nominee in the show's history. Her journey hasn't always been easy though, with bouts of depression and anxiety taking their toll, and a niggling identity crisis that reached its peak in the last couple of years. Riley sat down with me ahead of the release of her new album Church Pew during her first visit to Australia, where she unpacked her process of self-discovery alongside faith and how she feels now about having started so young.
About starting so young. You know, the older I get, the more I reflect back on what it means to start young in an industry of any sort, especially in an industry where ministry is at the center. I've learned so much so quickly. I think one of the most beautiful parts and also one of the most challenging parts is doing a lot of it in front of people. You know, yeah. In a lot of ways, I've grown up writing and releasing music, and I have this beautiful sort of time capsule to look back on and chronicle really pivotal years of my life, my late teenage years and my early 20s. I wouldn't change anything. I'm very grateful for what it's taught me. But yeah, I mean, there were definitely days where I felt way in over my head. Lots of ups and downs.
How does ministry being in it make it a little different starting young?
Oh, that's another great question. I think that just by the nature of being a follower of Jesus and somebody who lives by their faith, when you're 13, 14 years old, I mean, let me say this first. I believe that as believers, our journeys are continuous every day. I don't think we ever arrive as Christians who have done it. I think every single day, from my experience, it's the process of reevaluating and reaffirming yourself and re-choosing to put your trust in Jesus every single day.
Yeah.
With all that life brings and all that life takes away and all those sorts of things. And so I think at the tender age of 13 and 14, I was in the throes of navigating many of the heavy questions that surround faith. Do I believe that there's a God? Why do I believe that? If somebody asked me why I believe that, could I tell them why?
Yeah.
You know, all of these heavy questions. And I think impacted it the most in the sense that I was asking myself a lot of those questions while also putting myself out there as a public figure who represents Jesus. And so it comes with its challenges, but I really feel like that's helped me to bond and connect with the people that listen to the music.
Yeah. And the answers to those questions I feel like would change so much. Like when you're 13, the reasons why you believe in God or not, and then at, 23, 24, the reasons that you believe would be totally different as well, and learning how to express those.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I wish I could go back and look at 13-year-old Riley in the face and say, I know you love Jesus so much right now. Just wait until you're 23. Wait until you feel how much you love him then. And I think to a certain degree, so much of my love for my faith and for Jesus has come from years of getting to know him, years of watching him bring me through hard times, and years of watching him be faithful time and time again. But it just gets sweeter with age is what I've noticed.
It's a beautiful picture. And where did music start to play a part in not only your faith, but just in the decisions you were starting to make as an artist, as a career? When did music start to become the thing you wanted to do?
Oh, since as early as I can remember. If you ask anybody in my family, from the time that I came out of the womb, I was like, come on, let's put some sparkles on. Yeah. Let's do a show. That's what we did for fun in my house. I was introduced to music through my mom. From the time that I could remember, she was singing in the choir at church. And I would sit on the edge of her bathtub and listen to her warm up her voice before church. And when your first exposure to music in general is hearing people sing in a Southern gospel sing in church, there's a certain passion that is sparked early on. I think as a little kid, there was so much that obviously I didn't understand about the complexities of faith. But what I did understand is that those people up there singing were singing about something that mattered to them.
Yeah.
And I think that was the initial pull and wanting to choose to write music that matters. And, not to say that other music doesn't matter. Yeah. But for me and my journey and my walk through this life, I wanted to create music that authentically chronicled what was happening, good, bad, and ugly.
And there's a lot of vulnerability in that. I feel like a lot of artists have to make the decision, do I be as vulnerable as I really sort of want to be, or should I hold something back? Because it is going to go out there to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you draw the line between how much to share and how much to keep to yourself?
That's a great question. I mean, it changes all the time. There are certain seasons of life when I feel more inclined to share than others. And so I would say that now at this point of where I'm at in 23, after playing shows, after traveling and seeing different parts of the world, I have had so many experiences where I have seen those vulnerable songs that felt a little uncomfortable to release because they were so vulnerable, be the most helpful to other people because other people are going through it too. So I think that those stories have given me courage to lean into the moments of life that have doubt in them, the moments of life that have anxiety or depression or sorrow or questions or relationship trouble, all of it. I think that as believers, it's important that we don't put our faith into a quaint little, tiny little box in the corner that we pull out when we want to write positive songs about Jesus, but that we truly view the creative process as encompassing every aspect of our life, yet every aspect of life through the lens of what it means to love Jesus, including relationships and friendships and everything, every part of it.
Yeah, and you're pretty honest about some of the more difficult parts of life that you've faced, whether it's been burnout, whether it's been anxiety, depression, all of these sorts of things. When did you first start to feel some of that stuff around burnout and realize like, hey, I'm kind of in a more challenging season now?
I mean, that's a great way to look at it, of being in a more challenging season. It was, again, I've had years in the industry, years writing music and releasing music, enough to have, been running for a long time. I, by personality, is very type A, very ambitious. I want to work hard. I find a lot of fulfillment in that, which can be good, but can also be really bad and really unhealthy. So at the beginning of 2022, I just was so overcome by such intense feelings of burnout. And I realized, after taking the time to pick it apart and try to identify where that was coming from, I realized that I was putting so much of my value, self-worth, and identity into numbers on a chart, into how well liked I was, into how successful I was. And that leaves a human being very empty because nothing will ever be enough. You know this. The people listening know this. All of those bars that we're trying to raise or all of the top of the mountains that we're trying to climb to will only get higher the minute that we reach them. And that's where burnout is born. And so upon that feeling of, okay, my heart is not in a healthy place to creatively be authentic.
Yeah.
And so I felt a strong nudge from God. I heard him so clearly and saying, you have to stop right now. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe your team's going to freak out a little bit. But you have to stop and go get quiet. You have to go up the mountain alone with God and figure out what identity is. Because you've lost it. You've put it in what other people think of you rather than what God thinks of you and who he says you are. And so I took the greater part of a year away from writing and creating and didn't play many shows. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
So what sort of things were you doing in that time to reorient? Because as you say, I mean, so many people watching, myself included, we have times where we want to go, Who am I actually? What do I really think about this? Like, how did you find answers to some of those questions?
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. A lot of it is I'm still very much in process. Again, it's this continuing. I don't ever want to give the impression that I have arrived because I haven't. You know, I'm constantly becoming. But I was really intentional about not being on social media. I mean, we're all so sick and tired of talking about it, but that's where a lot of this burnout is coming from. We have a front seat view to everybody else's successes and victories. It is the easiest thing in the world to get on and compare and not feel like you are doing enough. So I turned my phone off. I didn't look at social media. I spent time with my family. I spent time journaling. I spent time digging back into the Word and speaking truth over myself, reestablishing who I am on the days when I woke up and I did not feel like it.
Yeah.
And so I think it became a discipline in that regard of really having to reconstruct what it means to be fulfilled in identity and ultimately where to find that.
And it's really hard, I imagine, because the people that you're potentially comparing yourself to, the industry that you're in, a lot of them are other Christians trying to do their art and minister. And it's strange to me sometimes to think that there's this level of comparison within people like, am I doing ministry better or are you doing ministry better? If you look at it that way, I think it feels really odd to frame it like that.
It really does. It really does. And that's not of God. That's the thing about it. Comparison culture is very toxic. And I think that, you know, even looking back into the negative side of what the church culture that's even hurt some people is, are you going as much as are you as involved as I am? Are you doing this and this right? You know, are you friends with a blah, blah, blah? It is really easy now at this cultural moment to make something that is intended to be beautiful, not beautiful. And cloaked with this dark shadow of comparison and what's what and who's who. And I believe that comparison is 100% from the enemy. It's not of God. That he was never about comparison. He didn't do that. And so, yeah, I think it is funny too. That's the uncomfortable part of, you know, being in a line of work that is also ministry based. Those kinds of questions and uncomfortable feelings come up all the time. And you really have to push yourself to go, why am I feeling this? Why am I comparing myself to somebody else who is trying to do good for the kingdom of God? Why does that? And then that gets uncomfortable too.
Yeah, because you hear the answers to those questions and you maybe go, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. I thought it this way.
I don't like that.
Right.
You're right.
But you're in definitely a new season now. Your next album, Church Pew, is out this month, September, which is pretty cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
First time you're executive producing.
Yeah.
Does that feel like, how does that responsibility kind of feel taking that on?
It's a lot of responsibility, but from day one, it was something that I was very intentional about earning. It can be very easy to slap your name on a project as executive producer when you're an artist, especially. But I really wanted to earn it. So I'll back up and take you to the beginning. After that period of time I took away to get quiet, I didn't write any of that stuff. During that time, song ideas started coming to me very quickly. It was a beautiful season of becoming re-inspired. And shortly at the end of that time that I took off, I felt like I had an album laid out. I didn't write any of it, but I was gathering titles. I was making playlists of songs that inspired me sonically, lyrically, what I like, tempo-wise. Took it into my brilliant producer, Jeff Pardo. We wrote the album with a group of 5 co-writers in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really quick, very fast. But I think that because I was coming from such a season of burnout, I felt a strong calling to take full ownership of this new chapter. Yeah. You know, when you start in any business so young, the business side of it is the part that can become difficult to navigate. But when you're learning how to write songs, when you're walking into writing sessions, when you're doing all these things at such a young age, I was so in the mindset of I want to learn. I want to be a sponge. You're looking over and seeing Grammys on the shelves and going, okay, no. I want to soak this up. And to a certain degree, it's hard to infuse your own opinion into that.
Yeah.
Because you don't yet trust your own opinion. You don't trust completely your own ideas and the things that you're drawn to lyrically and sonically. And so for this album, Church Pew, I felt like I had finally gotten to a place, and partly due to taking that time off, where I was able to trust my vision of what felt authentic and honest to me and what music I felt was necessary to put out.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, I was able to take a lot more ownership. I was able to steer the boat in a lot more ways that I hadn't before. I was able to be involved in the curation of the string sounds and the tracking process of the band and creating choir parts and all of these sorts of things. But it's been just the journey of a lifetime. I geek out over the stuff like curating the artwork and the color scheme, and I love it.
Well, more of your identity, I suppose, gets to be expressed in it. If you feel that sense of ownership, if you feel like you're shaping it, then you can be so proud and say, this is really me. This album represents who I am and what I want to say.
Yes. And I've sensed that to a degree on my past 2 albums, but never really before like I have for this album. This album feels like Riley.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things you really wanted to make sure was said on the album?
There were a vast array of things that I was very intentional about wanting to talk about. I definitely wanted to explore the theme of grief. In the period of time between the last album and this album, I'd walked through grief and losing my Aunt Sharon to cancer. And walking through grief for the first time really shifted my perspective for a lot of things that I viewed in life and really pushed me to a place in my faith where I was challenging a lot of my thoughts and I was asking a lot of questions. And I really wanted to write a song about grief on the album in a way that allowed grief to exist as something messy and unsettled. The song itself doesn't, we don't tie it up with a bow. So we've talked about grief. We've talked about love. We live in a culture where there is no shortage of songs about hookups, breakups, one-night stands, but there are very few songs that are actually talking about love, the love that we want to find in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a song that was inspired by what it means to find love, what it means to be loved by family, what it means to find the miracle baby as a gift from God, as a true form of love. Talked about my journey with depression on a track called Jesus Cries. Just really exploring what it means to look at Jesus as an empathetic savior.
Yeah.
Who finds compassion in us. There were so many themes on this record that were important to explore. Those are just a few.
I love the sound of all of them because we've only had a taste of some of the albums
Girl,
so
I know.
far. But to think that there's, as you expressed it, that sort of, I guess, dynamic range of emotion is important because earlier you were talking about how our faith can seem like this sort of sanitized, tied in a bow, like pretty thing. But then to think that faith is something that can help us through the hard moments, that Jesus wept, right? That he cries, that he knows sort of heartache. What does that mean to you that you have a faith that can ride the highs with you but also be something in those lows as well?
I remember looking back on 12-year-old, 13-year-old me, that was going through different seasons of life, some that were hard, some that were heartbreaking. And I think that when I write music, it's important to me that I am creating songs that represent the range of human emotions. I think that sometimes people look to other music to fill in those gaps because they find Christian music to just be about one thing or one feeling. But Jesus exists in every single part of my life, in the joy and the grief and the sadness and the heartbreak and the excitement and the disappointment and all of it. And so I think in efforts to do him justice in whatever capacity I can, I think it's important to reflect the range of emotions in music. So Christians feel like they themselves can have the freedom to experience Jesus in the range of all of their human emotions too. Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's not just pulling out the Jesus box or the faith box or the God box when we get to a place where we feel, good enough and healthy enough to worship. It's about all of it. I'm very passionate about that.
And I like as well in the title song, Church Pew, that you actually talk about the range of human experiences that come into church, right? The people that kind of make up the seats that sit in a church service. What is the heart behind that song?
I love that song. I really do. It's one of my favorite songs that I've ever been a part of writing. We wrote it on the second day of writing for the album. Church Pew was a title that I had in the notes section of my phone. I had written it in there in that period of time I had taken to get quiet. I was drawn to the title. It was one of those where I took the title into the studio. I was writing with Jeff Pardo and Paul Duncan, and we started having this conversation of, if church pews could speak, what would they say? What stories would they tell? What have they seen? And as we started opening up this conversation, it became very clear very fast. It wasn't just, say they see people coming in their nice clothes on a Sunday and, doing church. That's not the story. That's a part of the story, and it's a beautiful part of the story. But also I think it's important to take a moment of, okay, what about the church pew that has seen people grieving during a funeral and weeping and confused and angry at God? What about that story? What about joyful weddings? Two people coming together in a beautiful way. What about that? Yeah. What about AA meetings? Sitting in a circle on a pew. What about that? We wanted to really write a song that encompasses the full range. Because my belief over everything is that Jesus saves room for his people. No matter what they've been through, no matter what they're going through, no matter how messed up or broken they might feel, Jesus is incredibly inclusive because he died for sinners. That's the thing. I think that's the thing we forget as Christians. It's not this competition to convince Jesus that he died for you for a reason. He knows he died for you. You're a sinner.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's why we need a perfect savior. And so I really wanted Church Pew to capture the essence of people experiencing life and all of its highs and lows and everything in between.
Yeah, and that message of everybody's welcome, everybody has a place. Why do you think that's so important for people to hear in this day and age, like in this particular cultural setting, I suppose? Why do you feel like it matters at the moment?
I think especially now in this cultural moment, because people have been given such loud and hot microphones on the internet, and because of people's past experiences and what they've gone through, I think that some people have an idea of God and the church that is not accurate, and that most Christians would tell them is not accurate. And I think it's because of that, it's really easy to scare people away from the love of Jesus as if it's a performative thing, or as if it's something you have to earn or be qualified or born into. But Jesus truly cares for every single one of us. The friend that doesn't feel like they're good enough to know Jesus, the friend that doesn't feel qualified to walk into a church because, they're carrying so much shame on their back and they don't know where to put it. I think that's the thing that's so important to me to understand, is everybody has a place, because the faith that I abide by is not the faith of creating rules and rigidity for the sake of rules and rigidity. It's creating structure that protects the individual. And helping to foster healthy patterns to help foster a healthy life. Yeah. And I think broadly in culture right now, that's not the image that's being painted. And so I want to be part of painting the image that says God is opening you in with two open arms.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful picture that you paint. And I think in bringing up shame as well, so important, because people can feel really shamed. But then I think we can also put shame on ourselves. We can put ourselves down and make ourselves feel not worthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Without anyone else, saying that. Yeah. For the person experiencing that, who maybe feels like, they aren't worthy for whatever reason, they feel that sense of shame, what would you say to them? How do you lift yourself out of that space?
I have shame spiraled many a time, and it's a tough place to be. There's no escaping that prison if you're putting yourself in it, right? Read the Bible, is what I would say, and you will discover that isn't the heart of God. The heart of God is to break people from the chains of shame and guilt and all of the things that so often we are the ones that are putting ourselves into. Yeah. And that's so easy, whether it's the shame of, gosh, if I were 5 pounds lighter, if I would have done this, I haven't done enough, from the shame of I'm not a very good daughter. Or I'm so bad. We put ourselves, or, oh, look what I've done. How could I ever be loved? How could I ever be enough? And we ask ourselves these questions. But I think the narrative of Jesus is the opposite. It's, hey, if you want to put that big old, large, weighty burden you're carrying down, I will help you. Lay it at my feet. I got you.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I love the way you express that. And on this podcast, Riley, it's called Undistracted. We talk to you guys about how we can live our lives intentionally, how we can be better at building our lives around our passion, our purpose, and dealing with some of the stuff that gets in the way of that. You're clearly really passionate about what you do. What would it mean? What would it look like for you to be living in line with the things that really, set you on fire, that you're passionate about? What would life look like?
What would it look like?
It's a big question.
Whoa.
I mean, feel free to answer it however you like.
Okay, if I felt like I were truly living out the purpose.
Yeah, truly undistracted, in line with that thing.
Truly undistracted. You know what? I think my mind would be a lot more clear. I think that if I were truly living undistracted from the things that don't really matter, I would feel a lot more freedom and joy. And I think that's what I'm aiming towards every single day, is getting a little bit closer to that. Getting a little bit closer, inch by inch, making less room for the things that pull me down and making more room for the things that give freedom and hope and joy.
Riley may be young, but she's certainly a deep thinker about her life and where she wants it to go. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Her new album, Church Pew, comes out September 22nd. Keep an eye out for that one. And of course, make sure that you rate, review this podcast, share it with your friends. You can subscribe wherever you're listening. And until next time, enjoy living this undistracted life.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.